Yo, what's good? Welcome to Observing the Process. Before we start, I'm hoping you can help me out by supporting the show. You can rate and review it on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. You can share it with your friends, you can blog about it, or discuss it on your own podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to my channel and like this video, or you can support it directly. You can do this by going to my website. I'll leave a link in the description. Thank you for supporting the show. Listeners like you make it possible. Today on the show, I had Lexie Comstock. Lexie is the creator of Strictly Cookies, and I can say by far they're the best cookies I've ever had. We talked about going to Harvard and her road to Shanghai. Please give it up for Lexie Comstock.
In the land of China, people hardly got nothing at all.
No possessions?
And in China, they never go to church.
No religion too?
Or do magic.
Well, it's easy if you try, Dick.
3, 2, 1. Okay, we're live. Lexie, how are you doing? Thanks for coming over.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, Strictly Cookies, the first time that I had one, it was actually from a company called Nosh, and I really didn't know like what was up with them, but my roommates were like, yo, you have to get these cookies. And they would come, all I knew was the chocolate chip ones. I didn't even know there was like a whole range of other stuff. And I got them. They're amazing. And my roommates and I would always joke like, oh, how many cookies did you have tonight? Like, like sometimes the full 5-pack.
Nice.
It's just like, and for people who don't know, these are like a very rich cookie. It's just not like a small cookie.
Yeah.
So
It's a commitment for sure.
yeah, definitely the whole pack is a lot. So yeah, I kind of wanted to have you on and learn about your story and how you even got started with Strictly Cookies.
Awesome. Yeah. So where do you want to begin?
Okay, so I actually want to begin at school because you went to Harvard. That's right.
Yeah.
Harvard, and you're from Connecticut.
Yes.
Cool. So to me, Harvard is such like an ambitious school to go to. It's like Ivy League, one of the best in the world. So when you were in high school, was that like a big pressure for you, or what was that like?
Yeah. So it was interesting. I definitely did not grow up thinking or like hoping or expecting to go to Harvard at all. And it kind of, through sports and just through a couple of friends who were older than me who went to Harvard, it kind of got on my radar in that sense. But luckily, I didn't have that as the goal my entire life. It just kind of came together in just a cool way. And so it didn't, my parents also didn't put a lot of pressure on me. So it wasn't as if, had I not gotten in, they'd have just been like, yeah, like good, you tried, like
sure,
cool.
Sure.
So that made it great. But yeah, it definitely really a surprise to me that that's where I ended up.
Were you like valedictorian of your school?
No.
Or?
I think I was just involved in a lot of things. So I like had a lot of stuff going on. So I did some government stuff or like, student government stuff.
Okay. Super involved
sports,
with school. And what sports did you play?
I played, in high school, I played field hockey, squash, and lacrosse.
Cool. Sounds like very stereotypical.
Yeah,
like,
East Coast.
I'm from Long Island, not so far away from Connecticut.
Yeah, big lacrosse.
Long Island is huge for lacrosse. So you play lacrosse as well?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. That's like a very niche sport to the East Coast, right? Would you agree? Or
it is. It's growing. I think it's gaining popularity in other places, but yeah, it's definitely, for my West Coast friends, they're like, what is lacrosse?
Yeah.
Like, well, they play, so actually, so depending on where you are, I know Colorado has a good lacrosse program and you have some good, but it's definitely more popular in middle school and high school on the East Coast, I would say.
Okay, so did you go to Harvard to play sports as well, or was it?
Yeah, I played lacrosse for a couple of years in college.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what was that like? Because like my first experience when I went to URI, it was like...
My mom went there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I went there only for a year.
Oh, wow.
And it's not that I didn't love it, but it just wasn't for me. Like you had to be involved in a sport or a fraternity or like kind of like a club clique situation.
Where
Otherwise,
did you end up going?
I ended up going to Champlain College in Burlington, Vermont.
And did you like that more?
I loved it.
Okay,
it was just way more my scene, outdoors, snowboarding, by the water.
Yeah.
All that stuff was for me. Where is Harvard again?
Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, right. So it's like in a city. That's a completely different...
Yeah. And for me, so I had gone to boarding school. So I was used to like, I grew up in Connecticut, went to a boarding school in Connecticut where I lived at school.
Oh,
so
boarding school. Interesting.
Yeah. So I was used to like a very kind of small community in a pretty sleepy town. So it was awesome for me to be at a university, tons of people,
right?
Having the access to the city, but also having some stuff pretty close by. I wasn't like going into downtown Boston all the time and like clubbing or whatever, but it was nice to know that there was always stuff going on.
Right. How was boarding school? Was it co-ed or was it?
Co-ed, yeah.
Okay.
It was great. It was, I went when I was 13. It's just a young little girl.
Little Lexie.
Yeah.
Boarding school.
But it was good. Yeah. I think it allowed for a lot of independence at a young age. And I always was pretty independent. But it definitely prepared me for living away from home, I think.
Is it a boarding school where you stay there even during the weekends? Or because I know there's some boarding schools where you actually can go home for the weekend depending on how far away you are from.
Yeah, they have rules. So when I first started, I think it also varies by grade. I kind of forget now, but you would have like open weekends and closed weekends. And we actually had half days Wednesdays and half days Saturdays. So we had school on the weekend as well. So, but there were open weekends and you could go home. I think maybe as a senior, they were like all open. I'm not sure, but they wanted people to stay because then you would have various activities. So it was actually great for community building because everyone would be around hanging out. And it was before like a lot of technology. So it was so fun because you would just be doing this random stuff. Like we would make these like weird, I love my friends from high school. We would do these like weird videos, just like with a digital camera, like my old like little Canon, and just do pranks and get up to a lot of stuff. And it was just really, it's nice thinking back on that. Like we just had so much, even though we were working really hard and they planned, the entire day, you just found yourself with some dead time. And so you'd be bored and you'd come up with crazy things to do. So that was really nice. So I have very, very fond memories of high school.
Nice. Yeah. I think it's so cool when people make videos and stuff like that. And back then you didn't have an audience really, or like a goal to put it somewhere. So it was like purely for yourself to make those videos.
Yeah. It was for no one else.
Yeah.
I remember actually looking back at a video from 7th grade that we had to make for some class on, like we just did like a bizarre video on VHS that we had to do for like some anti-drug class, and just thinking like where that would be now, like what you would like, in addition to doing it for a class, like what mediums would you put it on? But it's just so fun that those things just exist in obscurity, and it's just like in my, like in a box in my house. Yeah.
That's funny. So getting into Harvard though, you went there for sports, but was the process pretty like many interviews or similar to, did you apply to other colleges? Did it seem, cause like an Ivy League school like Harvard, it has all this clout and like big air about it, to me at least. So it just feels like it would have been a different process, but maybe not.
I think it's pretty similar, honestly, to every other college application process. I had an interview, but it was just one interview process. And then it was very, I applied early decision, which I don't think they have anymore. But once I got in there, I was like, okay, sweet.
I'm good.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah, definitely. How could you not take that opportunity? And you studied, what did you study again? East
Asian Studies.
Yeah.
So I think this is the thing. I think I was such like a weird candidate. I think that really worked in my favor because I did all these like kind of like weird things in high school. Like just various things.
Okay.
I was like really tight with my teachers. So I had good recommendations on that level.
You already had the guanxi back then.
I had that really strong guanxi, and then did a lot of sports, kind of was involved in a lot, and then had this real passion for China at a young age.
That's so interesting.
I know, because I had first gone to China in 2000 when I was 12. Yeah.
Okay, so let's take it back to then. I did not know this.
Yeah.
Okay, so why'd you go to China in 2012?
My dad was like doing a business trip here for some reason. And so my mom had actually come to Asia in the 80s for her work. She used to work in the fashion industry. And so my dad would always tag along with her when she would go to various places. And so when he had this opportunity, my mom was like, I want to come because now it's my turn. And they brought me along. My sister was at school at the time and she's a couple of years older. But I was in 7th grade and they were like, we can take you out of 7th grade for 1 week. So actually it was cool. One of my English teacher made me like journal the experience. So I still have that journal. It's really funny. It's great that he did that.
You said from 2000?
From 2000.
Wow.
So I went in 2000, was like, this place is wild. It's so different from anywhere I've ever been. And I went back a few years later and just again was like, this place is crazy. Like, this is so cool. And so I was pretty, I don't know, I just found it fascinating. And I was like pretty set on concentrating or majoring in East Asian studies even before I applied, because I was like, this is something I want to explore. So I just think I don't think at that time in particular, I don't think there were that many people expressing interest in that department. that early on. So even
You're talking about going to Harvard.
Yeah. So even in my grade, I think there were like between 5 and 7 people who were majoring in East Asian studies. Now I'm sure it's
that's
huge.
a pretty specific thing to do.
It's very specific. But it was awesome. Sorry, just one thing, because it was so cool. So it was very cool though, because it was such a small group of us, but they have amazing professors, visiting professors or people who were there in that department. And so I got so lucky, because some of the things that people say about a university is they say, okay, well, you're in a huge class with hundreds of people. So like, yeah, you have a great professor, but you don't have access. Like I had such a cool experience being able to really engage and interact with these awesome, very famous East Asian professors. So that was great.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was a big reason why I transferred as well at URI, big lecture halls. And when I went to Champlain, it's more of a small, intimate setting with your professor and you get to know them. And I also, I mean, this is like a silly thing that just clicks over time. Like in high school, I think teachers, are there for the long haul, like year after year, they're teacher, like that's all they do. But in university, like professors, they don't necessarily, like they do other things outside of their, like they're trying to achieve higher goals rather than just teaching kid year after year. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They're not just there for you. They're there for
they're there to learn for themselves too, which if like, I mean, it might sound stupid, but I didn't exactly know this when I was in college.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, but now it makes total sense. Like there's this guy, Tim Cito, who, the last guy on the podcast, Eric, he was studying at somewhere in Montreal, and that was his professor. And then he, like Tim also has a big connection with China. So he ends up like becoming friends with this person. And it just like opens up such a new world to your professor as like more than just a teacher. They're a human also. Yeah. So that's cool that you got to develop these relationships with your teachers. Yeah. Yeah. And so there's only like 8 students. Do you still remain friends with them, or were you friendly with them? Or
so a couple of my very good friends were also East Asian studies concentrators. And I will say, even if you're not in that group, you're still allowed to take the classes. So there were still 30 people in a class, and people who had no earlier interest in China would be like, oh, this seems cool, like I'll do this. So it's not like it was like one-on-one, but I'm still very, very close to my university friends. Just actually went to a wedding of one of theirs in Israel.
Wow.
Over October holiday.
That's
so
cool.
That was really cool. But yeah, no, I have, I had a really awesome college experience.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for that. And I spent every summer in China.
So that's part of it.
Yeah.
You get to go to China every summer.
So that wasn't connected, but like that was just me. Like I was like, I'm going to do that. Yeah. So I did a language study program in Beijing.
Okay.
The next year I worked at the Olympics. And then the year after that I did worked at a PR firm. But it was funny because all my friends would come back like really tan and like relaxed, and I'd be like gross and pale.
Great Beijing. Yeah. That's so funny. I want to go back to the first time you came here in 2000. Do you remember where you went? Was it Shanghai or
Beijing? Beijing and Hong Kong.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I just remember going to, back then I think they've closed it down, Silk Street, where you would go for kind of fake stuff. And I got a Razor scooter, which as a 7th grader was like amazing. Yeah. Because they had just come out. And I remember, I mean, now this seems very rude, but just like Razor scootering around the Forbidden City and being like, this is sweet.
No, that's awesome. That's so cool.
It was really
who
cool.
gets to say that? They Razor scooter around the Forbidden City. That's funny how like, okay, so I skate in Shanghai, and they'll kick me out of a lot of places. I mean, as they should, whatever. I'm skating on public property, but they have no problem with kids like on the same skateboard skating around the same area. Yeah. So I'm sure that's just how they looked at you.
I'm sure, yeah.
If there's an adult on a Razor scooter,
that would be like, why are you?
What's going on? I guess that's how they look at me. That's so weird. Yeah. But you're just kind of cruising around in Forbidden City. Yeah,
loving it.
That's too funny. And then, so you, did you say you came back in between then and college as well, or?
So so basically every summer during college, I was in China. And then after I graduated that summer as well, I moved here. Wow. I moved to Shanghai.
So you were just like so committed the whole time.
Yeah. My friends think it's so weird.
Yeah. And so it all starts with just you coming here in 2000, kind of opening your eyes. That's what I wanted to, as you were telling that story, I think it's so important to open your eyes to new culture as young as you can. Yeah. And I think a lot of people in America, they might travel around state to state and not see that much else. But once you kind of leave your comfort zone and see the way other people live, and I think China is one of the most intense places that you can do that at a young age.
I remember, I think I might have written my college essay about this because I remember one scene, I was on a bus or something in Beijing in 2000. And back then, I mean, even now we have a ton of bike. I mean, now they're like more policing the streets a lot more. But back then, just so many bikes interacting with the cars, and it was so chaotic and like, what I saw to be very chaotic, and the bikes were kind of like weaving in and out of the cars or whatever. But it just worked. And I was like, this is so crazy. In the States, this would just be a disaster. There'd be so many crashes. But like, it just really stuck out to me. I was like, oh, this is a very different place. And it like totally works in its own way that I don't understand. But like, I want to learn more.
I still don't understand how it works,
No.
but it does work. I mean, like, and one of the cool things I like is, I've said this many times, but, old or grandparents will get around the city on bike.
Yeah.
And they're active. And like in America, if you saw like an old person on a bike, you might be like, are you okay? Like, do you need to get help?
Totally.
But here it's totally chill.
Oh my gosh. I go to the parks a lot here and like they're doing pull-ups. I'm like, oh my God, how are you like so much stronger than I am? And you're 70 years older.
That's another thing. The use of public space is they use public space here in a way that I think is not utilized as well in America. I think they take advantage of the parks. And I think that was something you told me in the questionnaire, is like you like going and walking around to different parks.
Yes, very.
And that's something I wanted to bring up is like, okay, so New York has like one massive central park, and that's kind of like it. There's other little parks, but Shanghai, if you go exploring, there's so many gems out there.
Totally. I feel so I surprised myself by moving to Shanghai over Beijing because I hadn't really spent much time here. And I had the typical like, thoughts about Shanghai versus Beijing. Beijing has more culture, all that stuff. But I love Shanghai. And one of the big reasons is because of all the green spaces.
Yep.
You just wander along and you just see these really cool spots, and it's just such a nice vibe. Like they're so well taken care of.
Yep.
They're always like teeming with people, or like in a nice way. It's not overwhelming, but like people are dancing. There's always some action in the morning. There's like cool stuff going on. It's really, it's a really cool, it's really one of my favorite parts of living here.
I think it's very special.
Yeah.
And especially like that's what I mean by utilizing the spaces, like dancing. Like when I come back from on a plane ride, like, jet lagged, like I'll wake up super early and I'll end up at like Fuxing Park sometime. And I made one of my favorite videos of just like a montage of people doing like what to me are strange things, but like they're strange, but I also appreciate them. Yeah. And that's what I hope people understand when I post and when people share stuff like that. It's like, yes, it's funny because it's different and strange to us, but it's cool and it's different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, me and my girlfriend just came across in People's Square, like next to I forget the metro. Anyways, there's a park. I pass by it every day, and then when you walk through, it's like I haven't even seen this angle of the buildings, and it's pretty cool. So I wanted to go back to so one of your first times coming here during college. You mentioned like you were doing something. One of the times you said you were a tour guide, but what was the first one you said you did?
So the first one was a language study program.
Okay.
Second was working at the Olympics.
Okay. So the language study program, that was going to be a question also, is like for East Asian studies, are you studying the language or are you studying the history? I'm sure it's a bit of both.
But so it's a combination. So you have to hit a few of the history courses, but then also I think it's 2 years of the language.
So were you already like conversational by the time you were out of college, or what was your progress like?
Yeah, I would say, I could definitely, I was comfortable here, but obviously I've learned so much more being here.
Sure.
And there's so much more to learn as there always is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was comfortable moving here and felt good about that. But I will say what was really funny. So I actually came here for a marketing job working at a Chinese firm. And my first few days, I was so depressed because I was overhearing all of my Chinese colleagues speaking Chinese, didn't understand one word. And I was like, oh my God.
Really?
What the fuck is happening? Like, what did I do wrong?
Because it was...
So then we have a meeting. We have an official meeting with everyone like 3 days later after I'm just like sweating. I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? And I understand everything. And it's because they had been speaking in Shanghainese.
Right.
And I was like, oh, thank God.
That's what my dad even told me when I first moved here. He's like, I applaud you for trying to learn the language, but even when you do learn it, like there's Shanghainese. There's dialects to every single city.
Does your dad speak Chinese?
Not at all, no.
Okay.
But he like
he
had
has a lot of wise words.
He had a patient, or he has like a colleague or something that who was in the know about China and language. And I still try my best, but it is like sometimes maybe that's why I get deterred some days is because like they're just speaking Shanghainese and I'm just like, damn, I'm not even. Yeah. But that's, I guess almost everyone can speak Mandarin nowadays.
Yes.
But maybe that wasn't the case like 20 or 30 years ago.
I don't think so. I'm not sure, but I would say now, like, even if someone's speaking Shanghainese, they'll just quickly switch to Mandarin if you need.
Right. So then the next job was being a tour guide in the Olympics. That must have been a super exciting time because a lot of guests that I've had on, you know, if they've been here since the mid 2000s, they always bring attention to the Olympics and how like, special of a time that was for China in general. I mean, so maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So I was a tour guide for Visa, which was, it's still probably been my favorite job just because I got to go. I mean, it was like super intense. It was like 17-hour days, but I got to tour around people and bring them to the events. So I like got to go to a lot of the events. But it was just a really special, unique time when there was so much excitement. Obviously there was so much, I mean, we forget like back then there was a lot riding on the opening ceremony and just the entire event going on.
Right. I mean,
and so the buildup was super high. Everyone was so proud. Everyone was so excited. And then that opening ceremony just like blew everyone out of the water. Yeah. And kind of since then it's been like, ooh, China on the fast track.
That's amazing how the Olympics are such a massive driver for countries in general.
Yeah. Because it shows it's really hard to pull off. And so it shows your legitimacy.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure people like that went really well, right? Like I'm pretty sure.
I was not young, but I didn't really know. I mean, like I was 2008, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was still in high school and I was like kind of, you know, obviously I followed the Olympics, but I didn't know the significance to what it means to have an Olympics in your country. I mean, it brings tourism, it brings work for laborers to build the stadium, and it just does so like everything for the economy. Apparently,
I mean, that's how we got is that or the Expo? We got like some nice cabs out of it. I think that was probably the Expo actually.
Oh, really?
2010. Yeah.
Well, even now they put so much attention to the Expos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, cause they want to just replicate that Olympics model in every possible way they can.
Yeah.
And I guess it works. I don't know anything about the economics of that, but I went to the Olympics, not the Olympic site. Like I saw everything still stands there. And it's like, now it's even a tourist destination. Like the architecture of that building is insane. The way it like curves like that. And the pagoda is what it's called or
I don't remember, but it just, everything, all the buildings were so cool.
Yeah. And so this was for Visa. You were touring around like, was it just sponsored by Visa and you were touring around anyone who wanted to do a tour? Or was it Visa employees?
It was like the executives of Visa.
Okay.
Yeah.
That must have been a kind of a cool networking because like you're meeting.
I mean, at that age, I like had I was like 20 and I was just trying to stay awake. I was so tired.
Yeah. Long 17-hour days.
Yeah.
Like,
they were long days, but it was so exciting. And so, I mean, I was just like trying to not mess up the whole time, but but it was sweet. It was awesome.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
And the cool thing. So what I didn't realize, for anyone who's been to the Olympics, there's this whole not underground, but thing that happens there called, it's like a pin trade where you have these lanyards you have a pass so you can get into various places and you have Olympic pins. And it's this beautiful, honestly, it was so emotional just because it's such a cool time when you just see someone random, like walking with pins and you go up and you're like, hey, can I trade? Like, I love your pin. Can I, cause you're wearing all of your pins and you're like, oh, can I trade you whatever? And various pins have various like worth. And so you would say, you know, because companies give them out. So Johnson & Johnson might have really cool pins that year and like, but they only release like 50. And so those are worth a lot. So it's this awesome little like marketplace, but you end up chatting with all of these different people. And I had not appreciated because I hadn't been to the Olympics before. And I unfortunately haven't been since, but like, it is such an amazing event.
Yeah.
It really feels so like the world feels so cohesive and like everyone's just there for like the sports and it's like it's just a really, really nice vibe. And the pin thing, it was so cool. Like I had no idea that existed.
Yeah.
And it's a great reason to go up and talk to people. And it was wonderful.
Yeah. That's really cool to hear the positive sides of the Olympics. Cause you know, recently I've heard a lot of negatives in terms of just like, you know, sometimes there's corruption behind like building and stuff like that. And then, I guess that's the most of the negative. And sometimes it's like taking advantage of athletes in a sense, but I don't know much about that either way, it's really cool to hear that pin story because the culture of like trading and then like a very organic way to start talking to people. And, it does bring people from all over the world to come like be one.
Yeah.
It's a super powerful, positive message. Yeah. It's happening in, I guess, 2022 is the next, it's in Beijing.
So that's the Winter Olympics,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I guess
Japan is before that, I think.
Yeah, Japan, summer 2020 Japan, and then
Beijing,
winter 2022.
Cool.
So 2008 must have been summer.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. I find it interesting that they're able to go back to back, not back to back, but so close. Like 2008 to 2022, that isn't that far away. Like, I wonder.
It says a lot. I mean, it's pretty cool for Beijing.
Yeah. Hats off to Beijing.
Yeah.
So, okay. So moving.
As always, hats off to Beijing. To be clear, hats always off to Beijing.
So you graduate Harvard, and what's your game plan? For me, when I graduated from college, I was up until the last minute. I didn't know what I wanted to do, except a month before I finally figured out a job right out of school. Yeah. For you, what was it like, graduating and?
Yeah. So it was actually, I remember I have this clear vision of I think it was definitely senior spring, like pretty late in the game, where I knew that I wanted to go to China, specifically Shanghai, but I was still looking for the right job. And it was, I don't know if it's still that way now, but it was like kind of hard to remotely get a job. I didn't necessarily want to do the job I had over the summer before. And so I was kind of like, I wanted to remain in that realm and like the marketing PR realm. And so I reached out to various people, but it definitely, I feel like I didn't get a job until at least, I think I remember getting one in June. So I was kind of like, I don't know why I wasn't worried about it, because I definitely should have been worried about it. But like, I had confidence that like something would work out, and then I would just like go to China if it didn't. Like I would just kind of show up if not. But yeah, so I had I had one offer in Beijing and then one in Shanghai. And back then you just like didn't get paid. This is the funny thing. Nowadays, I feel like salaries are getting a lot better, especially, I mean, it's different. I don't know. People talk about like the old expat packages. Like I was 22. I was not going to get an expat. That's not what they
I think an expat package is when like,
you're like 35, you have like kids.
You like move from a corporation. Like you already have an established expat salary in the States.
Totally.
Then you need to transfer that over.
Yeah. So the job in Beijing offered me 1,000 RMB a month.
Oh my God.
And then the one I ended up taking in Shanghai was 5,000 RMB a month.
Okay.
Which is hard.
Yeah.
That's like that was tricky. So I was on a very strict diet of what ended up being cookies and oatmeal and eggs.
Okay.
Just to keep that was the home cooked stuff. And then I would have like noodles and stuff. But anyway, yeah. So I got this job in Shanghai, moved here in August and did that for just a couple of months. Cause then I got this cookie idea and wanted to focus on that. Yeah.
So that's the pivot.
That's the pivot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're at this company, and it obviously, if you're only there for a couple months, you're not enjoying it, I guess, or.
It was one of those things. So I feel like I had been told that, I'd heard stories of people graduating and like being like, oh, this job is beneath me, or like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to make copies or whatever. Like I am really down to do basically anything. And that's really helped me with running my own business, because you have to.
Yeah.
But what I hadn't anticipated was not having anything to do. And I don't want to do that. Like I want to be doing stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of a bizarre thing where on the one hand, it makes total sense for a company to be like, you're 22, like we'll give you projects. We'll give you like one project a week. But then it was just kind of this weird cycle where I like being very efficient and managing my own time, and not having that much to do was training me to like waste time, because if I get a project on a Monday and I finish it Monday at 3 p.m., what in the world am I going to do for the rest of the week? And so I just was feeling very antsy, and I do think it would have been a cool opportunity if I had continued it. It would have again, I was just impatient. And because I had so much time to just literally be sitting with like a Word document open, because my computer actually faced the main walkway. So I couldn't even like browse the internet, because I just don't want to be like seen reading the news or something. Of course. So I just would have this like Word document open, and I'd just be like typing stuff. Like, I don't even know.
But it was I'm the great. Same way though.
Yeah. But it ended up being great, because I was like, man, I like really genuinely miss cookies. And I had remembered, so I grew up with cookies. My first word was cookie. Like,
really?
Yeah, 100%. Truly.
You're the poster child for this company.
And I forgot about that until I started that. And my mom reminded me because I had grown up knowing that and it just kind of like left my brain. But so I'm just like sitting there and I had remembered coming to China all these years. I'm a big dessert person. I love sweets. And I would come and like the only options were Magnum bars, ice cream bars. There was just no baking industry here. So I was kind of sitting there and I was like, like I really miss cookies. Like I really want a cookie.
Right.
You know, I was living away from home. It's a very like comforting dessert. And I was like, I wonder if I can do that. And back then, I mean, now we're really lucky. There are so many foreign grocery stores, like even just Taobao, like the ability to order chocolate or whatever on Taobao. But back then, there was really only the one that was readily available was really only City Shop, and they only sold. I'm pretty sure they sold butter in like really small little containers. Like it was like way back when. It feels now. I mean, it was almost 10 years ago.
That is.
Yeah. So luckily, I got connected to this girl Amelia who used to run Amelia's jams and chutneys here.
Okay.
So she was like the person who like started, I think, like the whole like craft movement here for like smaller companies. Yeah. Cottage industry. And she let me sell. So I like, bought some stuff, I think at City Shop probably, made my first very expensive batch of cookies and brought some to a market she was at. And then she told me about some wholesale market that was really, really far away. And so I had to take the bus there and like carry the 5 kgs of butter, but it kind of like developed from that. But in the beginning I think Smart Shanghai first wrote something about me in maybe December or January. And I had started maybe October, November. And then I got some orders and I was like delivering during my lunch break and stuff. And then I remember really stressing out about what to do because I was so bored at work. This thing seemed cool. I wanted to, spend more time on this. And I remember she was like 2 years older than me, but like 2 or 3 year older friend was like, you're 22. Like this is the time to just, you can get so many other jobs here. Like, don't worry about money. Like you can tutor and do all these things. Like now's the time to kind of try this out. So I quit and here I am.
So that was all happening while you were still at the company. Like, figuring it out. And it wasn't even like you had the business plan in mind yet. You were
my God, no.
You were just like, I want to do something different.
Something. Yeah. Because it just felt like if you're not working, I find it very difficult to not be working on something. And it just feels like you're wasting time and like wasting your life. Yeah. And so,
So I guess that kind of answers one of my questions that I was going to ask, like stereotypically, if you were to tell me like a Harvard graduate was, coming out of school, like they might be working at a big corporation or so, there's like a stereotype. And I think just more like a cultural pressure to enter a job like that from any college graduate, not just Harvard. Yeah. So to take that risk, like, was that a factor in your mind? Did you feel like the pressure to be in a certain, like be a certain person because you're a college graduate? Because like maybe your parents' pressure, like.
Yeah, no, honestly, I think I kind of avoided maybe all of my life, I've kind of avoided feeling a lot of pressure, at least from other people, because I haven't necessarily, like with sports, it wasn't like sports are life. Like if I don't play in college, like I'm done. Like it was like I had a lot of other stuff going on. And so in terms of feeling pressure in college or being a college graduate, I think because the China thing was already so weird, my friends and peers had already been like, okay, she has something else going on. Like, I wasn't on that path anyway. So to not conform didn't register.
Yeah. The path of coming to China in general sets you apart enough to be like, I'm not going to go down the traditional route anyways.
Yeah. And so I think that it just because of like the adventure of it all, like I never really felt that.
Interesting. So developing Strictly Cookies into a business, you decide to go full in. Like, what are the steps you had to take?
So this is the interesting thing. So back then it was so different. Like it was, even now it's still like a little bit gray area just with everything, but a lot less. Like it's a lot, like you can get a piece of paper that's like, these are the steps that you need to take in order to do a business. And they had it back then as well, but it was a little bit harder to track down, especially because food safety was just at a different place. Like there hadn't been a lot of the scandals that then made China really crack down.
To my understanding today, it is the most difficult type of license to get.
And so hard.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, and honestly, I've had very, very positive experiences with the Chinese FDA here. Like they really, when I've gone into like our district one, they really want me to understand. Like they've been very, very nice, but it is really confusing and it is constantly updated because they want to be safe. They want to like run everything really well. But back then, I mean, it wasn't even clear, like, you know, so we have two businesses basically. One is our wholesale business and we sell to cafes and restaurants. And the other is our retail business. We sell to customers directly via WeChat store, website, our physical store. So you have to have two separate licenses to operate those things and two separate companies. So we do. And we have to work out of a factory for the wholesale stuff. And then we have our shop that's licensed for the retail stuff. But back then, it wasn't like a lot of people were just selling. I mean, I started by selling out of my apartment. Like I was selling to a small cafe out of my apartment and it was much less regulated. And so in terms of it, I got, again, very lucky because when we were starting up, like everything was kind of starting up. And so I was allowed, like I didn't come in with a business plan. I didn't come in with a ton of investment. I didn't come in with like any of that stuff. And so I just learned as I was doing it. And like, as China was cracking down on certain things, we were in a position where it was like, oh, well, we're kind of already going this way anyway. Whereas now I think it's pretty intimidating I mean, as a 22-year-old, given today's conditions, I would have to do it a very different way. Like I would have to go in and be like, this is the plan. This is how much money we need. These are the regulations. This is the person in charge of food safety in our company. Like this is all this, because it's so confusing. It would be very, very different. But I was very lucky at that time that things were still developing. And so I had a little bit of space and room to just like learn as everyone else was learning.
Yeah. Super interesting how times have just totally changed since, I guess, let's say 2010, 2011, when you're starting out. You're able to start out of your kitchen in a sense. And what are the highlights like leading up to maybe getting your own space or kind of like that road? Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I love cookies. Like I really do. I really do. I think they're like the best dessert. I think they're just one of the best items ever. They're very simple, but you can do a lot of creative things with them. Like I genuinely think they're the best.
You are by far the most creative I've seen. I wanted to bring this up at some point because like, thank you for that Mookie package.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that one had like a spicy
the
version.
Sichuan pepper.
And I never in my life would have thought I'd eat a spicy cookie. But
well, get ready for another spicy cookie coming up in February. Okay. But yeah, they're just great. And one of the things that I love in terms of highlights, like you creating a food product, it's like I love it because I love food. I love dessert. And it's a very intimate thing to be creating something that someone is eating. And so I think the biggest highlight for me was when I went to my first fair, I was just bringing samples to be on Amelia's table, and someone tried a sample and was like, oh, like, can I buy a pack? And I was like, oh my God, what? Like you want to buy, like I hadn't anticipated that. And so that was just like such a high. And then I remember another time, again, before I had my own space, just when I was out of my apartment, just like I would do all the deliveries. And I remember one time, just like a day of doing deliveries, because I would wake up, it was very intense. I would wake up at like 4, bake, like get everything ready. And then around 1 and do all the admin. And then around 1, go out to do the deliveries.
It's hectic.
Yeah, super hectic. So I would, at the end of a long day, I just remember like, this time I think I was taking a cab home, which was a big deal because I would never take a cab. I would take the bus and then walk, or take the subway and then walk. And I just remember being like, this is so cool that like this is all like something I created. And this is something like in every stage, like it's like a product it's a physical product I've created. So that was cool. So that's probably a highlight.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think a lot of people, they want to chase their dreams like you, but they don't realize you have to put in the work as well. Like you're waking up at 4
really
in the morning.
Yeah.
Running around town. Like, and it's funny. I would do similar things like that if I'm hustling with little projects. Like anywhere I could save money makes me feel better about myself. Like by not taking the cab, like having those little wins are super important.
Yeah.
I drive a lot off of that.
Yeah. And the one of the best lessons I think that it taught me was just like and this was kind of the case before, like I said, like with the internship, like I was willing to do anything. Like you just have to, like when you're doing your own stuff, when you're starting out, like you have to do everything. And so it's a really interesting position to be in as a boss where like you've done it all. So like you understand what goes into it. Like I don't know. I think it would be different if you were asking your employees or someone to do something that like you weren't willing to do or you hadn't done, but having gone through it, like you get it. And so I feel like that gives you a certain, at least me, it makes me feel better and like a certain sense of authority where I'm like, yeah, I've been there. Like
it makes the biggest difference in the world. Cause for me, like when I do video production for my work, and I interned at Push, and I didn't start the company, but it was a very small company in terms of the amount of people that are working there, and you kind of have to know how to do anything.
Yeah.
So you start as an intern, and I would do editing and filming and lighting and sound, and like learn every aspect, like working with the clients and stuff like that. And then you work your way up, and you find one position that you kind of focus and hone in on.
Yeah.
But gaining that experience with all these different other fields, it allows you to have empathy for people that would work for you afterwards.
Yeah.
Because if you never worked it yourself, you don't know what they're going through necessarily. And it makes the biggest difference.
It really does. And it's also, I mean, I'm sure you find this as well. It's like so cool to learn everything and be like, wow, like I feel like you just pick up so many different skills because you have to. And you're like, wow, I am a capable human.
Definitely. So growing the business, because I read like, in one interview that you had grown to over 60 cafes. That might have been an old stat. It might be even more now.
Yeah. Sorry, continue.
But just in general, growing the business, like I saw that you're in Seesaw Cafe, and some of these Shanghai, like when I was younger in New York, it felt like it would be impossible to like get your cookie in a Starbucks.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? Like get into these big corporations where it seems like the walls are closed and you have to somehow, I would never even know how to get in.
Yeah.
So in Shanghai, I feel like it is kind of cool that it seems a little more accessible sometimes to get in touch with people. I don't know if you felt that along the way or.
Yeah. Again, the timing was just really good because again, when I arrived in 2010, coffee scene, pretty non-existent. Yeah, you had Starbucks, but it had not blown up. And so you see in the past few years, just like we were in Seesaw's first cafe. Yeah. And now that, now
they're
we're in
huge.
all of them.
And they have some of the best coffee.
They have amazing, honestly.
I love their coffee.
So one of my friends here is into food and does a lot of food stuff. And he was saying like Shanghai has the best coffee he's ever had.
Really?
Yeah. And he's like, does this stuff for work. And he's like, such a good coffee scene. And so, so as the coffee scene was kind of exploding here, we were already in a factory. And so we were able to produce like those licensed cookies for these places. But yeah, I totally agree. I think there's a bit of, especially in the beginning, like because you are a foreigner, everything was going to feel hard, but also like weird anyway. And so there's less of for me at least, there's less of a mental barrier to just walking in somewhere and being like, hey, can I? And it's not an entitlement thing. It's just like why not? Like I'm already here. Like I'm in China. Like I've already come this far. Like I've already started a random cookie business in China. Like why not? Like if that's happening, like why not just get this other stuff to try?
It's not so out of the ordinary to put yourself out there even more. Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah. I just think it's almost like it feels like you're in like a bit of an expat community. For me at least, I feel like I'm in a bit of an expat community, and that can help out. Because it kind of like puts you on the same team as someone for like networking and asking advice from certain people. Yeah. But in America or New York, it's kind of like everyone is almost in that same boat.
Yeah, interesting.
It's a weird feeling that I don't know if it's completely true, but it helps me kind of like reach out to people. It makes me more confident to ask for help.
Absolutely. So my parents actually I was actually born in London. And so they were expats in London because they're American. Okay. And I remember them telling me when I moved here, they were like, you know what, you're going to have so much fun. You're going to meet great people because the friendships just really like start up really easily and really quickly because you don't know how long people are going to be there. And I've totally found that here. Like, I really feel like you're right. Like everyone's kind of on the same team. Everyone's far away from home. And it's really nice to be able to, and people are so open. Like if you reached out to me, like we've met only a couple of times. If you reached out to me and you're like, hey, do you mind, like, do you know this person? Could you like I'd be like, of course. Like it's just a really nice, open community.
Definitely. I find that with more people than not. I
absolutely.
totally feel confident in asking for people's help and, get networking. And I love to help other people too. It's just the way I like to do business or the way I like to be as a person, just helping people. So one of the next questions I had for the evolution of your business is like WeChat, social media. Like all of that must have been something to adapt to and move on. Because like there was WeChat was there WeChat in 2010? I don't think there was. I think
so.
I think it like kind of popped up around 11 or 12 is what I know for sure. It wasn't here before 2010 because my friends who have moved here before that, it wasn't here. So I was wondering,
Yeah.
even that aside, like eventually WeChat Pay comes into play and like WeChat Wallet and all this stuff. So was that like and then even Ulama and like delivery
Definitely,
and like, so I guess that speaking to that, like we're getting more into maybe 2015 era, like, and maybe even opening up a first location. Or I don't know if you've moved ever since.
No, we've stayed in the same like building complex. We just moved to the outside one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And was it like adapting to WeChat or adding that to your list of things, like, because you have the retail space, right?
Yes.
And then you also have the factory.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know exactly where I'm going with this.
No. Yeah, no. I mean, it was definitely for us. I mean, on the one hand, it's like, oh my gosh, there are more things to manage. But on the other, it's like, wow, sweet, more sales channels. And so I think that for us, figuring out WeChat was tricky, but luckily we had someone help us do it. So that was really great. So, it's been good. I mean, it's been amazing for us. But I mean, I feel like things just change so quickly here. So, I mean, even what we're used to doing with our WeChat posts and WeChat articles and stuff that we push every week, like even that you have to just constantly update, which is similar to like, you know, anyone's approach to any form of social media.
Sure.
But it's been very cool and very unique to China. And I don't know if you found this as well, where like something will start in China and like we're really used to it. So like WeChat. And then in the US, like 2 years later, they'll be like, oh my God, Apple Pay. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
We're used to that.
Yeah. And it's like Apple Pay is not even easy to use.
Yeah.
Like, it's the scanning feature of WeChat and how like every family mart and just adopted so quickly the technology over here.
So I mean, we need to push Ulama and those channels more. And Taobao, for example, we have a Taobao store that's been great. But I've been very happy with all of the different platforms that China has allowed us to be on.
Right. So another question one of my friends, Gustav, had is, I don't know if you focus on branding for foreigners versus local Chinese people. Is that something you ever considered, or?
I need to consider it more for sure.
Yeah.
It's something I'm actually working on now, which is cool, but I haven't thought about it as much as I should have.
Yeah.
But it's been, I think because we've been going, like our whole thing is like, you know, homemade cookies, like comfort home. I've tried to make it so it's appealing to anyone.
Right.
But you can't just assume that everyone has the same assumptions about home and comfort and all those things. So it's actually, I'm very excited to spend time on that this year and kind of update things in that sense. But I think I've been lucky that we've had, just speaking to WeChat, like even the way that we approach WeChat now. So previously, like a couple of years ago, we would just like do a WeChat, like a WeChat post that was like, you know, English, Chinese, and then some photos and whatever. And now we have it in a much, I think, more typically Chinese fashion, where this really nice guy is helping us out, use the cool, what are they called? Like they're like fun little
stickers, maybe.
They're
gifts?
Not stickers. It's like a template rather.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like they're like cool, weird templates that I would have never thought of.
Yeah.
But I'm just like kind of looking out more for those sorts of opportunities.
Right.
And even with flavors, I mean, so it's funny because like visual branding, no, we need to work more on that. But in terms of the overall branding and even just like the flavors of the company, that is something that we've been doing for a while. So whether it's making our cookies less sweet, like we use less sugar than we would use in the States if I were just to bake at home.
Sure.
Or incorporating more Chinese flavors, like we do a purple potato cookie for the Mookies. We do like a Yangmei coconut cookie. So in that sense, I've always really enjoyed bringing the two cultures together.
Yeah. At one point you said, like, I don't know if I might misquote you a little bit, but like cookies are like kind of universal to both cultures in a sense. And like, it's a simple dessert, like something that you can make easily. So, and I guess you're trying to like, that's one way to bridge the gap between, you know, cultures or.
Yeah. I think it's just it's a very simple medium where you can do a lot with it. So I think that I'm going to continue to do really interesting flavors because I enjoy doing that. And I think that it will be something, while cookies aren't, like soft cookies are not a staple of the Chinese diet right now. I think that by incorporating flavors that are familiar, we'll be able to continue to grow our Chinese audience. And to be fair, like I've been pretty encouraged by the fact that a majority of our wholesale clients it's Chinese cafes.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah. And something I was interested in talking about is like, so you studied East Asian studies. And I mean, like a lot of foreigners will say like, oh, I know China, or the longer you're here, you realize the less you know more about China.
Yeah.
So as someone who's studied it and like you've lived here for a long time, like I'm into social media. I think I know what people want, but at the end of the day, I just don't understand this market sometimes. I don't know the way you feel about it.
I completely agree. And it's, I think I've gotten to the point where I'm just like, I need to surround myself with people who do understand it.
Yeah. I almost wonder if it's just such a wild card of a culture, or wild card of a market, that is it maybe just changing all the time?
Ooh, interesting.
That's part of it. It's just like, it's always changing. So it's not about really understanding it today, but like following trends. I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess you're from somewhat of a marketing background, if like that was one of your first jobs.
Yeah.
For me, marketing was my, my major.
Oh, cool.
And, I think it is something that you have to stick with, because now I've just been more into video production, and I use marketing a little bit for trying to like pump up my Instagram, and like I sell t-shirts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never really fully understand the Chinese market. I think it's just, or for that matter, even like the US market, it's about just following trends. The more I think about it,
I think it's just age as well.
That's a sad fact.
Yeah. It's really hard to keep track of everything, is especially because of technology. Everything is changing so quickly that it's almost impossible. I mean, it's very hard in any market, especially when you have others. Like if it's your only job, that's your job to know exactly what's happening and like, where people stand on stuff.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, I mean, it's just so fast paced everywhere, especially here. And so, my approach recently has been just like surround yourself with very interesting people who are, I don't want just someone who's like, this is the new trend, this will be good, whatever. Like it has to be consistent with our brand.
Sure.
So it's been cool to spend more time with people who, are like young Chinese kids who know what's up. Was it hard to hire people? Was that a big, that must have been a big step for me? I've hired people, and it's like kind of like entrusting people is super difficult for me sometimes, like when it's my business and my stuff on the line. I don't know. Yeah. I think I was just like so happy to have help, especially because I was like doing the baking, the delivery, and all of that stuff. I was just pretty psyched to have extra pair of hands. I think anywhere it would be difficult to find. I mean, people always talk about like, oh, it's really hard to find good staff, like anywhere. And so as we've grown our team, it's definitely like as companies change, like you have different needs and all that stuff. And, it's China's, Shanghai especially, like if you're looking for a job, you are in luck, because there are so many, like there are definitely more people who are employable than there are more employers than employees.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, especially in the food business where like turnover is just really high, and when Disney came, that was a big thing. They really affected a lot of the job market here.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah. I remember when I was working at a skate company, Iconics, and we had even like students whose parents were here just to work on the Disney project.
Yeah.
Like even one kid's dad was like in charge of water, like the water that like in the pipes and just like the foundation of, the fountains and drinking toilets, kitchens. Like that seems like such a, anyway. So Disney was a big time, and I guess it brought over a lot of people.
Not even bringing over, but just like there were immediately thousands of jobs open at a big international company. And so everything got more expensive. And I mean, just that obviously, I think that made like a difference because those people, but in terms of like turning things over to someone else, I've actually never really had that much of an issue with it. For certain things. For other things, like for the marketing and the branding side of it, that's been harder.
Right. Yeah.
But in terms of like baking, as long as because I'm there a lot, like, and now I really trust my baker has been with me for like 7 years, so I like really trust her. But I'm
7
there.
years, wow.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, she's the best. But I'm there and I'm like literally like looking at the cookies, so I'm seeing all of them.
So you do a lot of the business stuff, of course, but you still get in and cook or bake rather.
I won't I mean, if we're really busy, I'll come down and help with normal stuff, but I still do recipe development and stuff. And so for new flavors, I'm always kind of testing.
Yeah, you take it seriously. You're always changing up the menu.
Yeah, no,
always changing up the menu and planning. I really liked the Mookie box, like the work that went into, creating a package like that. Yeah. Explain to people what those are.
Yeah. So in China for Mid-Autumn Festival, a popular gifting set is a mooncake. and it's like kind of a not super sweet pastry with various fillings. So you could have red bean, duck egg, all that stuff. So we did our take on it. So a mookie, so a mooncake cookie. And we did 6 flavors that were various things. So we have kind of more classic Western, like a brownie with caramel in the middle. And then we did a salted butterscotch with a duck egg. So that was more Chinese flavor. Red bean filling with a sugar cookie, all those sorts of things. So chocolate with peanut butter, one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And we made it in like a nice, red fancy box. And that was great. I love doing that. So I love like thinking of, and I want you to try this apple caramel crunch one. Like I love thinking of delicious things to put in a cookie. So whenever there's an opportunity to do a new flavor, like for Thanksgiving, we're doing a sweet potato marshmallow cookie. Because it's like so
it's coming up right down the block.
Yeah,
couple weeks. That's crazy. Speaking of ingredients, I have some questions from some of the fans on Shanghai Observe. I don't know how to pronounce their Instagram name, but like I think I get it. Lasagna Del Hey wants to know if you'll make any vegan options.
We have a vegan cookie actually that I'm really proud of. So we do a chocolate chip walnut vegan cookie that's actually vegan and gluten free. And the big thing for me, we actually do a line of healthy cookies. So we do a protein cookie that has no sugar. That's really good. It's like a peanut butter chocolate.
That's awesome. So it's like not a meal substitute, but like kind of.
It could be.
Yeah, could be, right?
So it's definitely filling. I mean, especially for people who I'm a huge breakfast fan, but for people who just want something quick, that's a good one. We also do a sugar-free blueberry breakfast blast cookie that is also, I think, gluten-free. But yeah, so vegan wise, all of those cookies I'm really proud of. I'm especially proud of the vegan one because it's something not being vegan, I eat. I love it. And you truly can't tell it's vegan.
That's awesome.
So, so I'm really, really proud of that one and enjoy it a lot.
That's
so
awesome.
we have that vegan for you.
So do you, I mean, I'm sure you do take a lot of pride or, the ingredients you use in your cookies, and maybe even beyond that to like what you eat. I feel like right now I'm in a bit of a rut for like my diet. I think it's like affecting me in ways that I wish, I don't know. So maybe you don't know the answers, but like being like, I've read one thing, like just avoiding processed foods can be a huge thing. Yeah. So when you make where are you, I don't need to know specifics, like trade secrets as to where you're getting your ingredients or like, but yeah, speak to like the ingredients you use and sourcing and like that process of it.
Yeah. So for me, one of the things that's been just consistent throughout. So the way that I see cookies and how I grew up with them, it's like fresh, all natural, best ingredients you can find sort of thing.
Yeah.
So while I truly love Oreos, like they're crazy processed. And so, we've gotten requests in the past, whether it's like from a hotel or from a grocery store to make our cookies last for 6 months.
That's what one of my questions was going to be like, what exactly does processed means?
Yeah.
So processed means it can last longer and maybe made with preservatives.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, like our cookies and really any baked product that doesn't have, even cake actually, I mean, it's all doable, but cookies especially work well for this. You can freeze them and you can keep them for a really long time if it's in like a sealed container or a plastic bag. So what my mom used to do is she used to make 100, like a big batch of cookies, 100 cookies, put them in a Tupperware in the freezer. And we would just every day, like take some out and put them in a jar, either let them come to room temp or put them in the toaster. So so for us, or for me, and for our company, like all natural ingredients, that's huge. And I make a point, like I eat the cookies all the time. Like I have in my, like I dropped off before I came here, like I eat the eggs. Like I bring the eggs home that we use because I eat those every morning. I'm not even kidding. Like I brought the walnuts home as well. Like it's really important to me to have each of the ingredients be delicious on their own. So like actually even this is just funny. Like, so the sugar, both of the sugars I keep at home. Like I literally take from the kitchen, the brown and the white sugar, the walnuts, I keep at home, the bananas I'll bring, like the eggs I use at home. So and I like high quality stuff, high quality food. So it's good.
Are you doing a lot of cooking at home for your meals?
Yeah.
Because we've only talked about baking cookies.
Yeah.
You must be interested in other cooking. Like
I am. I'm trying to get more into it. My girlfriend's a really good cook and she's Italian, so she does some really good stuff.
Okay.
But I think mostly it's like there's this great company called BioFarm.
Okay.
And so they do a lot of really fresh vegetables out in this farm, and I actually ordered for tomorrow. And so just pretty simple, just like cooking, because their vegetables are amazing. So just cooking something simple with the fresh ingredients makes such a difference. What's the rut you're in?
The rut is probably no self-discipline in like not having like a McDonald's breakfast or like
that's rough. You should go genbing instead.
Genbing. Yeah, genbing would be a good call. I do have that every now and then. Maybe lightening up on the coffee. I don't know if I drink too much coffee, but
I have to say I made a switch from coffee to tea a couple of years ago. I've never felt better.
Wow. I mean, like, okay, so I did this thing called Body Awakening. The kit is right there. It's like a 5-day cleanse. And basically the gist of it is like you're just taking like supplements, but I didn't eat anything for 5 days. It was crazy. Just drinking a ton of water, and protein and stuff like that. I was very hungry, but it was like only actually for the second day I was like crazy hungry. The first day was okay. Second day I was crazy hungry. And then also what you do is you boil vegetables and then you can drink the broth as well. Yeah. It
sounds crazy.
It was crazy, but I felt so much clearer.
Really?
But then I screwed up and just like went back to like kind of my poor diet afterwards.
I mean, I don't think you can like do that for the rest of your life.
No. That's only like a cleanse. And then you're supposed to like kind of just get into more vegetable based foods, or I don't know exactly. I'm just like kind of I guess poorly self-disciplined, I guess.
I would just start small. I would just, if I were you, I would just pick one meal and I would do it breakfast just because then it's out of the way, and just be like, I'm going to have a really well-balanced, great breakfast in the morning.
What's a well-balanced, great breakfast?
It depends. So I love to have, my current go-to is the fresh vegetables from BioFarm. So I'll do like kale, tomatoes, onion, like stir, like, cook those, and then do 2 soft boiled eggs and a piece of whole grain toast.
Okay.
That's
so BioFarm.
BioFarm. Could not recommend it more.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
I can send you I'll send you their WeChat store.
That sounds great, because like convenience is another reason I would say I'm in a rut. It's very convenient for my fingers to be on Ulama and like
definitely, yeah.
And like you just have so many options, and I lean towards some of the poor ones. I don't know if you know Brute Cafe? Yeah. I think their stuff is very good. I don't know if you've had it. I hope it's like healthy. I guess if you're cooking most of your stuff, you know where it's coming from. So like that makes you feel confident.
Yeah.
But like if you're out eating, like do you just like check into stuff is not processed, or is that not really like a...
I mean, a lot of it, I think you're pretty fine at restaurants. Like processed food is mostly like packaged food. So if you're going into, if you're going into a convenience store and getting a bag of chips, that's going to be processed. But if you're ordering at a cafe, it's very unlikely that you'll encounter processed food unless you're eating like spam, like a cool like spam something.
Okay. Thanks for the nutrition.
Yeah,
tips.
You're welcome.
So as we start to wrap up, what's going on? You told me about November, Thanksgiving. You got some cookies going on. Yeah. And then, but for the future, like what else is going on for Strictly Cookies?
Yeah. So apart from kind of just like product stuff, so we have the Thanksgiving cookies and then gingerbread, like do-it-yourself gingerbread houses and ginger buddies.
That's a really fun project. Yeah. I bought that from my girlfriend last, not yours, but I bought like from IKEA, they make one.
Yeah,
and
ours is better. That's probably processed. Ours is not processed.
I'm sure IKEA's is processed. Yeah, but we didn't eat it. It was more just like for decorating. But that's awesome if you make one that's like good
it's
to
delicious.
Eat.
Yeah, it's really good. And we also do these really fun ginger buddies, like a gingerbread man.
I'll definitely promote that because I think it's an amazing gift.
It's really fun.
Because like you get to make it with someone.
It's great.
Yeah. So that's
and we're going to be doing various like little pop-ups at some of our partner cafes to like do little like, wine and gingerbread making. So we'll have some of that stuff going on. We're relaunching our Taobao store, which I'm excited about.
Nice.
Just kind of sprucing that up. And just trying to kind of just like push those cookies,
Yeah, keep
pushing those cookies, do more retail stuff, really grow our existing channels. And just have a little more fun.
Awesome. How can people buy your cookies?
So they can buy over at our WeChat shop, which is Strictly Cookies. They can visit our website, strictlycookies.com. They can follow our Instagram, which would be great, at Strictly Cookies. And yeah, they can visit our shop. That would be best.
Yeah, your
Yanan
shop is
Shilu in
actually
Panyu.
awesome.
Isn't it good? It's tucked away, but
it's
good.
tucked away,
Yeah.
but like once you get in there, like the neon lights are great and the atmosphere is
It's
actually
a chill
really
spot.
cool.
Yeah. So it's just what I tell people because it's a little bit because when you say Panyulu, Yanan Shilu, people are like, what? But it's just next to Columbia Circle.
Nice.
So that's a good reference.
That's a good
point.
reference.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap this up. I really
Awesome.
want to eat these cookies.
Yeah.
All right, Lexie, thanks so much for being on.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Boom. That's it. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this podcast valuable, there are many ways you can support it. You can rate and review it on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. You can share it with your friends, you can blog about it, or discuss it on your own podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to this channel and like the video. Or you can support it directly. You can do this by going to my website. I'll leave a link in the description. Thank you for supporting the show. Listeners like you make it possible. Also, if you enjoyed the intro and outro music, it was made by my brother, Danny Greenberg. You can go and check out his beats at soundcloud.com/estoric. ESTORIC. Okay, that's it for now. Peace.